Ever wonder what happens when two companies merge? How do they actually decide who gets what slice of the new pie? Well, sometimes the math can go horribly wrong, and that creates a puzzle that we are going to solve together today.
All right, so here's the plan. We're going to meet our two companies, then we'll break down a huge math mistake and see just how unfair it was. After that, we'll talk about the principle that makes it all fair and square, recalculate everything, and finish up with the one golden rule you have to remember.
Okay, first things first. Let's set the stage and meet the two companies at the heart of our merger story.
So, on one side of the ring, we've got ABC Limited with a cool $1 million valuation. And on the other side, we have XYZ Limited coming in at $2 million. Now, the main thing to lock in your brain right now is that 2-to-1 ratio. XY is worth exactly double what ABC is. That's going to be super important later.
All right, this is where things get interesting. We're going to walk through the first attempt at the merger math. And look, on the surface, it seems totally logical. But trust me, there's a massive, costly mistake hiding in plain sight. So here's how they first tried to do it. They said, okay, let's just pick a price for the new company's shares. How about $15? It's right in the middle of ABC's 10 and XYZ's 20. Makes sense, right? Then they built this exchange ratio based on that $15 price. It seems so simple, so fair, but this is the exact moment where the entire deal goes off the rails.
And bam! This is the result. Just look at that. It's completely upside down. ABC, the less valuable company, somehow ends up with 2/3 of the new company. 2/3! How is that even possible? Clearly something has gone very, very wrong here.
Seriously, you have to ask yourself, how on earth is this fair? It just doesn't make any sense. The smaller company can't just get the bigger piece of the pie, or can it?
Okay, so this isn't just a numbers game on a spreadsheet. This bad math has real-world consequences. Let's see what this actually means for the investors, the people who put their hard-earned cash into these companies. So let's imagine two people, right? Investor A puts $100,000 into ABC. And investor B, she does the exact same thing, puts $100,000 into XYZ. Same amount of money invested, just in different companies.
And now look what happens after the merger. It's absolutely insane. Investor A, who is in the smaller company, has almost doubled their money. But investor B, her investment just got chopped in half. This is a total disaster for investor B, and it all comes back to that one tiny, flawed assumption they made at the beginning.
So, how do we fix this mess? You can't just let that happen. Well, there is a way, and it's all about a really important idea called the proportionality principle. This is the key to making M&A deals fair.
And here it is. The principle is just common sense, really. It says that your ownership stake in the new company has to be directly proportional to the value you contributed. In other words, what you get out should match what you put in. Simple as that.
So when we apply that principle, it's crystal clear. The total value is $3 million. XYZ brought $2 million of that, which is 2/3 of the total, so their shareholders get 2/3 of the new company. ABC brought $1 million, or 1/3, so they get 1/3 of the ownership. See, it just makes sense.
All right, now that we have our secret weapon, the proportionality principle, let's go back and do the math the right way. You're going to see how different the result is.
So forget about that crazy exchange ratio and that random $15 price. Here's the correct way. You just decide on a total number of shares for the new company. Let's use 300,000 to keep it simple. Then you just allocate them. ABC gets 1/3, that's 100,000 shares. XYZ gets 2/3, so 200,000 shares. No weird formulas, just direct proportional allocation. It's clean, it's fair.
And would you look at that? That's what the ownership pie should look like. It's logical, it's fair, and it actually reflects reality. XYZ was the more valuable company, and now its shareholders have the bigger piece of the pie exactly as it should be.
Okay, but what about our investors? This is the most important part. Let's check back in with investor A and investor B. With this correct method, look, both of their $100,000 investments are still worth $100,000. Their value is preserved. Nobody got rich unfairly, and nobody got wiped out by some funky math. Now, there's another real-world factor we have to talk about, and that's earnings per share, or EPS. Think of it as how much profit each little share of the company represents. Before the merger, XYZ had a higher EPS. But afterwards, because their earnings are now spread across more total shares, their EPS goes down. This is called dilution, and it's a super common thing that happens in mergers.
It's a trade-off, and it's definitely something savvy investors keep a close eye on.
Okay, so we've seen the problem, we've seen the solution. It all boils down to one simple, incredibly powerful rule that you can take away from all this.
Here it is, the golden rule. In any fair merger, ownership must follow valuation. That's it. If you forget everything else from this, remember that one sentence. The value you bring in determines the ownership you get out. It is the absolute foundation of any fair and successful deal, period.
So that leaves us with a final question to chew on. This whole mess started with one simple, innocent-looking assumption, that midpoint price. It makes you wonder, right? What other hidden assumptions are out there in the business world that could lead to these kinds of wild, unfair outcomes? Where else is simple math hiding a much more complicated reality?